Rebecca Thompson stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, running her hand over her smooth scalp. The last strands of hair had fallen out that morning, finally surrendering to the effects of the aggressive chemotherapy she'd been receiving for the past 3 weeks. At 34, the diagnosis of stage 4 triple-negative breast cancer had been devastating, but it wasn't her worst nightmare. The true horror had arrived just 2 weeks later, when her 8-year-old daughter Lily began complaining of leg pains that wouldn't go away. Tests revealed the unthinkable: acute lymphoblastic leukemia. If you believe in the power of community and how strangers can become family in life's darkest moments, subscribe to our channel now for more stories that restore faith in humanity. "We're going to get through this together, bald heads and all," Rebecca had promised her daughter the night before, when Lily's last blonde curls fell out during her bath. Now, facing her reflection, she tried to summon the courage she'd sworn to her daughter they both possessed. The bathroom light flickered momentarily, another reminder of the mounting maintenance issues she couldn't afford to fix. Rebecca sighed, adjusting the blue bandana over her scalp. She'd always been proud of her thick chestnut hair. Michael, her late husband, had loved running his fingers through it. "Like silk spun from coffee," he used to say, with that crooked smile that still haunted her dreams 5 years after the car accident that took him from them. She wondered what he would say if he could see her now. Bald, gaunt, her once vibrant skin now pale and drawn from the chemicals coursing through her body. "He'd tell you you're still beautiful," she whispered to her reflection, trying to believe it. "He'd say you're the strongest woman he's ever known." A sharp pain lanced through her side, and Rebecca gripped the sink, waiting for it to pass. The doctors had explained that the cancer had already spread to her liver and bones before they caught it. The prognosis was grim: 12 to 18 months with aggressive treatment. Rebecca had nodded stoically as they delivered the news, asking practical questions about treatment options, while her mind screamed in denial. She couldn't leave Lily. Not now, not ever. And then, just when she thought things couldn't get worse, Lily's diagnosis had turned their world upside down again. 2 battles, 2 sets of treatments, 2 different hospitals. All while the bills piled higher than she could ever hope to manage on a teacher's salary, even if she hadn't been forced to take medical leave. Outside the bathroom, Rebecca could hear the soft sounds of the television, cartoons that Lily was watching from the hospital bed they'd set up in the living room. Transforming the living room into Lily's bedroom had been a necessity after her diagnosis. The small 2-bedroom house didn't have enough space to accommodate all the medical necessities, and the stairs to Lily's upstairs bedroom were impossible to climb on the bad days after chemotherapy. Rebecca took a deep breath, rehearsing a smile she hoped looked confident, and stepped out of the bathroom. "Hey, Baldy, what are we watching today?" she asked, keeping her voice light. Lily turned her head, her pale face brightening slightly at the sight of her mother. "You're bald now too," she exclaimed, a small smile forming on her chapped lips. Once rosy and full, they were now cracked from dehydration despite the constant application of medicated balm. "Matching with you," Rebecca responded, carefully sitting on the edge of the hospital bed. "We're the prettiest bald duo in town." Lily let out a weak chuckle before a wave of coughing interrupted her. Rebecca quickly reached for the cup with a straw on the bedside table, helping her daughter take a few sips. It was a familiar dance now, the moments of normalcy briefly interrupted by the harsh reality of illness. "Do you think we should get matching scarves?" Lily asked when the coughing subsided. "Like the ones Mrs. Rodriguez and her daughter wear on Sundays at church." Rebecca smiled genuinely this time. Elena Rodriguez and her teenage daughter Maya had visited last week, bringing homemade enchiladas and gentle encouragement. Elena had survived breast cancer 3 years earlier, and the colorful headscarves she wore had become something of a personal trademark, even after her hair grew back. "I think that's a wonderful idea," Rebecca said, gently adjusting the unicorn-patterned scarf Lily currently wore. "We could ask Aunt Jenny to pick some up next time she goes shopping." "Aunt Jenny called while you were in the bathroom," Lily informed after settling back against her pillows. "She said she's coming by later with food." Rebecca nodded, grateful. Jenny, her younger sister, had been her pillar of support since the diagnoses. As a pediatric nurse, Jenny not only offered emotional support, but also invaluable practical help, navigating the labyrinth of treatments, appointments, and medications. What Jenny couldn't do was solve the problem that weighed most heavily on Rebecca's shoulders each day: finances. As a single mother working as an elementary school teacher, Rebecca had already been living on a tight budget before cancer. Now, even with health insurance, medical expenses were piling up in frightening stacks. The medical bills, medications not covered by insurance, home medical equipment, not to mention regular expenses like mortgage and utilities, all while her income had virtually disappeared when she was forced to take medical leave. The emergency fund that had taken years to build was nearly depleted. Lily's college savings, a modest amount Rebecca had been proud to accumulate, had already been completely consumed. The credit cards were approaching their limits, and the treatments they both needed would continue for months, if not years. Rebecca glanced at the dining table in the corner, now covered with medical bills and insurance paperwork, instead of the family dinners and craft projects it once hosted. The most recent notice from the mortgage company sat on top, the bold red final notice impossible to ignore. 3 months behind already, and no way to catch up. She'd been avoiding calls from the bank for weeks now, knowing she had no answers for them. "Mom, don't make that face," Lily's voice interrupted her thoughts. The worried face. "It's going to be okay, remember? We promised." Rebecca forced another smile, marveling at the strength of this small person she had brought into the world. Since the diagnosis, Lily often seemed to switch roles with her mother, offering comfort when she should be the one receiving it. "You're absolutely right, my love. We promised." Rebecca gently adjusted the colorful scarf Lily had chosen to wear today. "Now, how about we finish watching this episode and then play some Uno? I'm feeling like today is the day I'll finally beat you." Lily rolled her eyes with dramatic childhood confidence. "You always say that, Mom, and I always win." "Well, enjoy it while you can. I have a good feeling about today." As Lily turned her attention back to the television, Rebecca discreetly checked her phone. 5 more notifications of medical bills had arrived by email overnight. She archived them without opening, a problem for another moment. For now, her only mission was to be present with Lily, make this afternoon as normal and joyful as possible before the girl's next round of chemotherapy tomorrow. Rebecca's phone vibrated with an incoming call, Dr. Patel's office. Her heart skipped a beat as she stepped into the kitchen to answer. "Ms. Thompson, this is Anita from Dr. Patel's office. I'm calling about your appointment scheduled for Thursday." Rebecca gripped the counter, steeling herself. "Please don't let it be bad news, not more bad news." "Yes? Is there a problem?" She managed to keep her voice steady. "I'm afraid we need to reschedule. Dr. Patel has an emergency and—" "But Thursday is when Lily has her treatment at Children's Hospital," Rebecca interrupted, panic rising. "I specifically scheduled mine to align with hers, so my sister only needs to take 1 day off work to drive us." There was a pause on the other end. "I understand, Ms. Thompson. Let me see what we can do. Perhaps Dr. Sharma could see you instead. Would that work?" Rebecca closed her eyes, fighting back tears of frustration. Another complication in the intricate choreography required to manage 2 cancer treatments with limited resources. "Yes, that would be fine, thank you." After hanging up, she took a moment to compose herself before returning to Lily. This was their life now. A constant juggling act of appointments, treatments, side effects, and the ever-present financial strain threatening to collapse everything around them. 5 miles away on the other side of the small town of Oakwood, Ray Diesel Mitchell wiped his grease-stained hands on an already stained rag. At 45, standing almost 6.5 feet tall with tattooed arms, Diesel had the stereotypical appearance of a hardened biker, an impression reinforced by the leather jacket with the Steel Angels MC emblem on the back, hanging on a nearby hook. What the appearance didn't reveal was the man who had dedicated the last 15 years to sobriety, rebuilding broken relationships, and leading what was now one of the most respected community service motorcycle clubs in the state. "Carlos, get over here and finish this oil change," he called to the 17-year-old working in the corner of the shop. "And don't forget to check the filter this time." The lanky teenager grinned sheepishly as he approached. "Sorry about that, Diesel. Won't happen again." Diesel ruffled the boy's hair, a gesture that would have seemed incongruous with his intimidating appearance to outsiders, but felt perfectly natural to those who knew him. Carlos had come to him 6 months earlier, a cancer survivor looking for direction after missing 2 years of normal teenage development to treatments and hospital stays. The kid had a natural talent with engines and an eagerness to learn that reminded Diesel of himself at that age, before things went sideways. "See that you don't," he replied gruffly, but with the hint of a smile. "I've got that meeting with the other clubs about the fundraiser. Think you can handle things here for a couple hours?" Carlos straightened, pride evident in his posture. "Yes, sir, I've got it covered." The Steel Angels had started as a typical outlaw motorcycle group decades earlier. Diesel had joined them in his early 20s, looking for the adrenaline rush and sense of belonging missing from his life after a difficult childhood and a brief stint in the army that ended with a less than honorable discharge. In the following years, he had thrown himself headlong into the lifestyle, drugs, alcohol, fights, and petty thefts that eventually led to serving 3 years in state prison. It was in prison that everything changed. A persistent chaplain had seen something in Diesel that he didn't see in himself: potential. With time and much initial resistance, Diesel began transforming his life. When he got out of prison, he returned to the Steel Angels, but with a different mission: to change the club from the inside out. The transformation hadn't been smooth. Several members resisted, clinging to the outlaw identity that had defined them for so long. There had been confrontations, sometimes physical, and a painful split that left the club temporarily fractured. But Diesel had persisted, guided by a vision of what the Steel Angels could become, a force for good in a community that viewed them with suspicion and fear. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't quick, but over time, he and a few other members managed to transform the Steel Angels from a group notorious for causing trouble to an organization focused on serving the community. Today, the club had over 200 members in 5 chapters throughout the state, organized fundraisers for various causes, performed volunteer services, and was especially known for its commitment to the local children's hospital and programs for at-risk youth. The annual Children's Hospital fundraiser had started small, just a motorcycle ride followed by a barbecue that raised a few $1,000s. Each year it grew larger, and last year they had managed to raise over $75,000. This year, Diesel was determined to break the 6-figure mark. He locked up the motorcycle repair shop he managed, a small but successful business that employed 2 other club members and a teenage apprentice. It was nearly noon on Friday, and he had an important meeting with representatives from other motorcycle clubs in the region. The Steel Angels were planning their annual fundraising event for the Children's Hospital, and this year they were hoping to surpass the previous year's record. As he rode his Harley-Davidson through the familiar streets of Oakwood, Diesel could hardly believe the transformation in his life. From an angry, lost young man to the respected community leader he was today, the journey had been long, but worth every difficult moment. He didn't have a family of his own. His short-lived marriage had ended during his darkest years, and he never had children, but the Steel Angels and the community they served had become his family. He passed by Oakwood Elementary School just as the lunch bell rang. Children poured onto the playground, their carefree laughter carrying over the rumble of his engine. This was why they did what they did. For the kids, especially the ones fighting battles no child should have to face. The memory of his own nephew, lost to leukemia at just 6 years old, was never far from Diesel's mind when they organized these events. Little Jimmy would have been 22 this year, perhaps married, perhaps with kids of his own. Instead, he remained forever 6 in the faded photograph Diesel kept in his wallet. Arriving at the Roadhouse, the bar and restaurant that served as an unofficial meeting place for local motorcycle clubs, though it was run completely legitimately, serving some of the best chicken wings in the region, Diesel noticed several motorcycles already parked outside. Good. Everyone was taking the meeting seriously. The Roadhouse had once been a dive bar with a reputation for trouble, the kind of place the old Steel Angels would have frequented. Now, under the management of Jenny Collins, it had transformed into a respectable establishment that welcomed families during the day and hosted community events in its large back room. The transformation of the bar paralleled the transformation of the Steel Angels themselves, which was perhaps why they felt so at home here. Inside the establishment, the air conditioning offered welcome relief from the June heat. Diesel greeted several members from different clubs with handshakes and hugs before joining the large table in the back, where Jenny, the Roadhouse manager, had already arranged notepads and water bottles. Jenny, a woman in her early 30s with a practical ponytail and undeniable efficiency, had transformed the Roadhouse from a run-down bar into a thriving business over the past 5 years. She was also the sister of someone Diesel didn't know yet, Rebecca Thompson. "Diesel, before we start, can I talk to you for a minute?" Jenny approached him as he was settling in. "Sure, Jen. What's up?" Jenny led him to a quieter corner of the restaurant. Her usually composed face showed signs of stress and sleepless nights. The dark circles under her eyes and tension in her shoulders told Diesel something was seriously wrong before she even spoke. I know you're all here to plan the annual fundraiser for the Children's Hospital, and that's amazing as always, she began, her voice lower than usual. But I wanted to ask, well, I wanted to know if it might be possible to consider an additional cause this year. Diesel nodded, encouraging her to continue. It wasn't uncommon for people to approach the club with requests for help, and they always listened, even when they couldn't meet every need. It's my sister Rebecca and my niece Lily, Jenny continued, her voice faltering slightly. Rebecca was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer about 2 months ago, and then, right after that, we found out Lily has leukemia. They're both in treatment at the same time. Diesel felt like he'd been punched in the gut. The coincidence with his own thoughts about Jimmy was eerie. My God, Jenny, I had no idea. Jenny's professional demeanor cracked slightly, revealing the worry she usually kept hidden during work hours. It's not something I advertise at work, she shrugged, trying to maintain composure. But the situation is getting desperate. Rebecca is a single mom, a teacher. Insurance covers part, but the expenses are piling up fast. She's exhausted all her savings. I'm helping as much as I can, but with my student loan and rent. Tell me what you need, Diesel interrupted, his decision already made. Jenny blinked, surprised by the quickness of his response. I'm not asking for charity, Diesel. Rebecca would be mortified if she knew I was here begging for help. I just thought, maybe you could organize some kind of small event? A modest fundraiser? Anything would help right now. Diesel placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Jenny, the Steel Angels don't do anything halfway. Let me talk to the guys. In the meantime, I'd like to meet your sister and niece. If we're going to help, I want to do it right. You'd really do that? Jenny asked, hope coloring her voice for the first time. It's what we exist for now, Diesel replied simply. Let's see what we can do. As they returned to the table, Diesel noticed the curious glances from the other club representatives. Word traveled fast in their circles, and Jenny's distressed expression hadn't gone unnoticed. Everything okay? Asked Mike Grizzly Henderson, president of the Road Warriors MC, a club that had once been rivals with the Steel Angels, but now worked alongside them on community projects. Diesel took his seat at the head of the table. Actually, I'd like to add something to our agenda today. Before we get into the details of the Children's Hospital fundraiser, I want to discuss expanding our focus this year. The meeting proceeded as planned, but with a new additional purpose that Diesel presented to the group. He explained Rebecca and Lily's situation without unnecessary embellishment. The facts alone were powerful enough to move even the most hardened bikers around the table. To his satisfaction but not surprise, the representatives from the other clubs immediately agreed to expand the scope of the annual event to include the Thompson family. The Steel Angels had built a reputation of trust over the years, and when Diesel presented a cause, the other clubs knew it was legitimate and worthy of support. Cancer's taken too many of our own, said Grizzly, whose wife had survived breast cancer 5 years earlier. Count the Road Warriors all in, whatever you need. Same for the Iron Horsemen, added their vice president, a quiet man known as Preacher. We can mobilize at least 50 riders for this. One by one, representatives from each club pledged their support, and what had started as a routine planning meeting transformed into something far more purposeful. By the time they adjourned 3 hours later, they had not only the framework for the annual fundraiser, but the beginnings of something much larger. As the others filed out, making calls to their club members to spread the word, Grizzly lingered behind with Diesel. I know, he said thoughtfully, my Elaine might want to talk to this Rebecca woman. She's been there, knows what it's like to face the big C while worrying about your kids. Except Rebecca's got it twice as hard with the little one sick too. He shook his head. Can't imagine what that's like. Diesel nodded, grateful for the suggestion. That would be great, Mike. I'm going to meet them tomorrow. Jenny's setting it up. Grizzly clapped him on the shoulder. You're doing good work, brother. Let us know what else you need. That evening, Diesel sat on the porch of his modest home on the outskirts of town, nursing a root beer and watching the sunset. The house wasn't much. 3 small bedrooms, a kitchen that needed updating, and a yard that could use more attention than he had time to give it. But it was paid for. A stable foundation after years of living on the edge. Sometimes he still couldn't believe how far he'd come. His phone buzzed with a text from Jenny. Beck said it's okay for you to visit tomorrow at 11. She's usually feels better in the morning. Address is 1274 Maple Lane. Thank you for doing this. Diesel typed a quick response, confirming he'd be there, then set his phone aside and returned to his thoughts. The fundraisers and charity rides had become a core part of the Steel Angels' identity, but this felt different, more personal somehow. A mother and daughter both fighting cancer simultaneously hit close to home in a way that tugged at something deep inside him. Perhaps it was the memory of Jimmy, or maybe it was simply the overwhelming unfairness of it all. Whatever the reason, he felt a certainty that this was exactly where the Steel Angels needed to focus their energy right now, and when Diesel Mitchell set his mind to something, it got done. The next morning, Diesel found himself driving his Harley through a modest residential neighborhood on the east side of Oakwood. Jenny had arranged the introduction, assuring her sister that Diesel was trustworthy and that his club genuinely wanted to help. Still, he could imagine the skepticism Rebecca probably felt, a massive tattooed stranger suddenly appearing wanting to help. He was used to that kind of initial reaction. The house was small but well maintained, with a front yard that showed signs of regular care, though some weeds were starting to appear, suggesting recent upkeep had been difficult to maintain. A child's bicycle with training wheels leaned against the porch, unused for what looked like some time based on the spiderweb forming between the handlebars and frame. A proud parent of an Oakwood Elementary Honor Student sign stood in the yard, a poignant reminder of the normal life that had been so abruptly interrupted. Diesel parked his motorcycle, removed his helmet, and adjusted his simple black t-shirt. He had consciously left his club jacket at home for this first meeting, not wanting to overwhelm Rebecca and Lily with the full biker image before they got to know him a little. Before he could even approach the door, it opened, and Jenny stepped out. She must have been watching for his arrival. "Thank you for coming," she said quietly, meeting him at the end of the walkway. "Rebecca's having an okay day, and Lily's in good spirits. Just go easy, okay? They're both still processing everything." Diesel nodded, understanding the delicate situation. "Of course, I'm just here to listen and see how we can help." "I should warn you," Jenny added, lowering her voice further. "Rebecca's proud. She's not used to asking for help, and this is really hard for her. She agreed to meet you mostly because I insisted, but, well, don't be surprised if she seems a bit guarded at first." "I understand that better than most," Diesel assured her. "Pride's a hard thing to swallow when you need help. I've been on both sides of that equation." He followed Jenny into the modest home, immediately noticing the transformation of the living room into a medical space. A hospital bed occupied the center of the room, surrounded by medical equipment, medication bottles, and a small table overflowing with get-well cards. In the hospital bed sat a small, fragile-looking girl wearing a bright purple scarf on her head, intently focused on a tablet in her hands. Beside her in an armchair was a thin woman who could only be Rebecca, her own baldness covered with a simple blue bandana. "Beck, Lily, this is my friend Ray Mitchell. Everyone calls him Diesel," Jenny introduced. "He's the one I told you about from the motorcycle club." Rebecca looked up, her tired eyes showing a mixture of wariness and desperate hope. Diesel had seen that look before, the look of someone who had been fighting alone for too long. Despite the obvious effects of chemotherapy, the pallor of her skin, the hollowness of her cheeks, the dark circles under her eyes, Diesel could see she must have been beautiful before cancer began its assault. Even now there was a quiet dignity in the way she held herself, a strength that transcended her physical weakening. "Nice to meet you," she said, her voice stronger than her appearance suggested. "Jenny says your club might be able to help us with some kind of fundraiser." Diesel stepped forward, deliberately softening his usual commanding presence. "That's right, Miss Thompson. The Steel Angels and some other local clubs hold events throughout the year to support causes we believe in. Your sister told us about your situation, and we'd like to include you and Lily in our upcoming fundraiser if that's all right with you." Before Rebecca could respond, Lily looked up from her tablet. "Are you really a biker?" she asked, her curiosity overcoming any shyness. "Do you have a cool motorcycle?" Diesel smiled, grateful for the child's directness. "I sure do. It's parked right outside if you want to see it later." "Is it loud?" Lily pressed. "Mom says loud motorcycles are annoying, but I think they sound cool." Rebecca's cheeks flushed slightly. "Lily, it can be pretty loud," Diesel admitted with a wink to Lily, "but I promise to keep it quiet around your house." This small exchange seemed to ease some of the tension in the room. Rebecca gestured to a nearby chair, inviting Diesel to sit. "Jenny tells me your club does a lot of charity work. I'm not used to asking for help like this." Diesel sat down, leaning forward slightly. "Ms. Thompson, Rebecca, please." "Rebecca," he corrected with a nod. I know this isn't easy. Pride is a powerful thing. Believe me, I understand that better than most. But sometimes the strongest thing we can do is accept help when we need it. The simplicity and honesty in his words seemed to reach her. Rebecca's shoulders relaxed slightly. We didn't expect this to happen, she said quietly. One diagnosis was devastating enough, but two? At the same time? She glanced at Lily, who had returned to her tablet, though Diesel suspected she was still listening. The medical bills, they just keep coming. Diesel nodded. That's where we come in. Our annual fundraiser was already scheduled for next month, benefiting the Children's Hospital. We've decided to expand it to include your family as well. But I wanted to meet you first, to understand exactly what you need and how we can best help. Rebecca seemed to struggle with herself for a moment before responding. I don't want to be a charity case, she said finally, her voice low enough that Lily wouldn't hear. I've always handled things on my own ever since Michael, my husband, died 5 years ago. This isn't charity, Diesel replied firmly. This is community. It's what neighbors do for each other. The way I see it, everyone needs help sometimes. Today it's you. Tomorrow it might be me. That's how we all keep going. Something in his words seemed to resonate with her. Rebecca studied him for a long moment, as if trying to discern his true intentions. Whatever she saw must have reassured her because she nodded slowly. Okay, she said. What do you need to know? Over the next hour, as Lily drifted off to sleep, a side effect of her medications, Jenny explained, Rebecca reluctantly opened up about their situation. The financial details were even more dire than Jenny had suggested. The health insurance covered a significant portion of the treatments, but the out-of-pocket expenses, experimental medications, home healthcare needs, and basic living costs, while Rebecca couldn't work, were creating an insurmountable mountain of debt. She had already taken a second mortgage on the house and was considering selling it, though the thought of moving Lily during treatment was heartbreaking. The hardest part, Rebecca confessed, is not knowing how long this will go on. My prognosis is, she glanced at Lily's sleeping form before continuing in a whisper, 12 to 18 months, but Lily's treatment protocol is at least 2 years, assuming everything goes well. I need to make sure she's taken care of, no matter what happens to me. The implication hung heavy in the air. Diesel felt a tightness in his chest at the thought of this young mother facing not only her own mortality, but the possibility of leaving her sick child behind. Who would care for Lily if... He couldn't finish the question. Jenny, Rebecca answered without hesitation. We've already discussed it. She's the obvious choice. But financially, it would be a huge burden on her. She's already stretched thin helping us now. Jenny, who had been quietly making tea in the kitchen, rejoined them with 3 steaming mugs. Which is why we need to make sure Rebecca beats this thing, she said firmly. I'm not planning to become Lily's guardian anytime soon. My sister is going to be just fine. The conviction in her voice was powerful, though Diesel noticed the quick, worried glance she cast toward Rebecca, a silent acknowledgement of the reality they were facing. Diesel listened intently, occasionally making notes on his phone. By the time he prepared to leave, he had a clear picture of what needed to be done, and his determination had only strengthened. Rebecca, he said as he stood at the door, I want you to know that the Steel Angels take our commitment seriously. We're going to help you and Lily. That's a promise. Rebecca managed a small smile, the first he'd seen from her. Thank you for listening, at the very least. Whatever happens, it means a lot that you came. As he prepared to leave, Lily woke up and asked sleepily if she could see his motorcycle. Rebecca hesitated, then nodded when Jenny offered to help Lily outside for just a minute. Diesel carefully lifted Lily, blanket and all, and carried her to the front porch. Jenny followed with an IV stand that Lily was connected to, maneuvering it carefully through the doorway. That's your motorcycle? Lily asked, eyes widening at the gleaming Harley parked in the driveway. It's so big. Sure is, Diesel agreed, setting her gently in a porch chair where she could see better. That's a 2015 Harley-Davidson Road King. Been customizing it for years. It's awesome, Lily declared, admiring the chrome and black paint. I've never been on a motorcycle before. Well, maybe when you're feeling better, we could arrange a short ride, Diesel suggested, glancing at Jenny for approval. With your mum's permission, of course. Really? Lily's face lit up with excitement. Mum, did you hear that? When I get better, can I ride on the motorcycle, please? Rebecca had appeared at the doorway, watching the exchange with a mixture of caution and gratitude for the moment of joy in her daughter's day. We'll see, honey. First, you need to focus on getting stronger. I will, Lily promised earnestly. I'll take all my medicines and everything. As Diesel mounted his bike to leave, Rebecca stepped closer. Thank you, she said quietly. It's been a while since I've seen her that excited about anything. My pleasure, Diesel replied. And Rebecca, we're going to make this happen. Not just a small fundraiser, but something that will really make a difference. You have my word. As Diesel rode away from the Thompson home, his mind was already racing with plans. The standard fundraiser wouldn't be enough, not for this situation. They needed something bigger, something that would galvanize not just the motorcycle community, but the entire town of Oakwood, and he knew exactly where to start. Back at the motorcycle shop, he called an emergency meeting of the Steel Angels leadership. By nightfall, 10 men and women were gathered in the back office, listening intently as Diesel outlined what he'd learned about Rebecca and Lily's situation. So, here's the deal, he concluded. We've got a mother and daughter both fighting cancer at the same time. Medical bills piling up. Mom can't work. They're about to lose their house. And on top of all that, there's a real possibility that the mom might not make it, leaving her sister to care for a child still undergoing cancer treatment. We need to step up in a big way. What are you thinking, Diesel? Asked Angela, Mercy Rodriguez, the club's treasurer and a childhood cancer survivor herself. The annual fundraiser is already pretty much planned. I'm thinking we expand it, make it bigger than anything we've done before. Not just a ride and a barbecue, but a full weekend event. Multiple rides, live music, silent auction, the works. Diesel's eyes gleamed with determination. I want to raise enough money to cover all their medical bills, keep them in their house, and provide a cushion for whatever comes next. That's a tall order, said Jake Doc Williamson, the club's vice president and a paramedic by profession. We're talking what? Hundreds of thousands of dollars, potentially. Exactly, Diesel confirmed. And we can't do it alone. We need to involve the whole community. Get the local businesses on board. Other clubs, churches, schools, everyone. There was a moment of silence as the group considered the magnitude of what Diesel was proposing. Then Mercy spoke up. My cousin's a reporter at the Oakwood Gazette. We could get a story out, raise awareness. My brother-in-law owns that print shop downtown, added another member. He could donate flyers, posters, that sort of thing. I know a few bands that might play for free, said Patch, the club's youngest member and a former musician. Good ones too, not just garage bands. One by one, ideas began flowing, connections identified, resources offered. By the end of the meeting, what had started as Diesel's ambitious vision had transformed into a concrete plan with assignments, timelines, and measurable goals. The Steel Angels were mobilizing, and once they set their minds to something, there was little that could stand in their way. The next week was a whirlwind of activity. Diesel called in every favor, contacted every allied club, and reached out to local businesses. The response was overwhelming. Once people heard about Rebecca and Lily's situation, they wanted to help. The planned fundraising event quickly evolved from a simple motorcycle ride and barbecue into a full-day community festival. Diesel met with the mayor, who agreed to waive the fees for using the fairgrounds. The local newspaper ran a feature story about Rebecca and Lily with their permission, highlighting the dual cancer battles they were fighting. A professional photographer volunteered to take portraits of the mother and daughter, capturing both their vulnerability and their remarkable strength. The images, showing them with their bald heads, proudly uncovered, smiling despite everything, became the symbol of the upcoming event. Bald is beautiful. Riding for Rebecca and Lily became the official slogan, emblazoned on posters and flyers that appeared in shop windows throughout Oakwood and neighboring towns. T-shirts bearing the slogan, and the striking black and white photograph of mother and daughter, heads together, smiling defiantly at the camera, sold out within days of being announced. Meanwhile, Diesel visited Rebecca and Lily several more times, keeping them updated on the plans while also simply providing company. He found himself increasingly drawn to this small family, impressed by their resilience. Lily, despite her illness, maintained an irrepressible spirit that reminded Diesel of himself as a child, before life's hardships had temporarily hardened him. And Rebecca, in her quiet determination to keep fighting despite overwhelming odds, earned his deepest respect. On one visit, he brought his teenage apprentice, Carlos, who had recently survived his own battle with cancer. The connection between Carlos and Lily was immediate and powerful. Here was someone who truly understood what she was going through. watching them talk animatedly about the strange hospital experiences and the weird side effects of treatments, finding humor in situations most would find only despair. Diesel felt a growing certainty that this was exactly where the Steel Angels needed to be. "You know what the worst part is?" Lily was saying to Carlos as they sat on the porch swing. "When people talk to you like you're already dead, all whispers and sad faces." Carlos nodded emphatically. "Right? Like, dude, I'm sitting right here. I can hear you planning my funeral." Lily giggled, a sound so unexpected and precious that Rebecca, watching from the kitchen window, felt tears spring to her eyes. "She hasn't laughed like that in weeks," she said quietly to Diesel, who stood beside her washing dishes, an unexpected but welcome help during his visits. "Your Carlos is good for her." "Cancer's a club nobody wants to join," Diesel replied, hands submerged in soapy water. "But once you're in it, there's comfort in finding others who understand the code. Carlos gets what she's going through in a way most adults can't." Rebecca studied him curiously. "You speak from experience?" Diesel focused on scrubbing a particularly stubborn pot. "My nephew, Jimmy. Leukemia took him when he was 6. That's actually how the Steel Angels started our work with the Children's Hospital. In his memory." Rebecca touched his arm gently, a brief gesture of shared understanding. "I'm sorry about Jimmy, and thank you for what you're doing for Lily, for both of us." Diesel simply nodded, uncomfortable with gratitude as always. "It's what we do." Meanwhile, the fundraiser plans continued to expand. What had started as a single-day event was now stretching to an entire weekend. The local fairgrounds had been donated as a venue. Bands volunteered to perform. Restaurants pledged food. Hotels offered free rooms for bikers traveling from out of town to attend. T-shirts with the slogan, "Bald is Beautiful, Riding for Rebecca and Lily," were designed, printed, and already selling fast before the event even began. The news spread through social media, motorcycle forums, and word of mouth. Clubs from neighboring states began contacting Diesel, asking how they could participate. The event page created by the Steel Angels' youngest member, a tech-savvy former Silicon Valley programmer who had found his true calling on the open road, was being shared thousands of times daily. If you're inspired by stories of communities coming together to support those in need, hit that subscribe button now. We share these incredible true stories to remind everyone that even in our darkest hours, humanity's light can shine brightest. Rebecca watched the momentum building with a mixture of amazement and disbelief. The outpouring of support from people she'd never met was overwhelming. Every day brought new messages of encouragement, offers of help, and donations to the fund the Steel Angels had established. "I don't understand," she confessed to Jenny one evening after Lily had fallen asleep. "Why do they care so much? Why are all these people going to such lengths for us?" Jenny smiled, arranging medications for the next morning. "I think it's a lot of things. Your story resonates with people. It could happen to anyone. And once Diesel got involved," she shrugged, "that man is a force of nature when he sets his mind to something. But mostly I think people are fundamentally good. They want to help when they see someone in need." Rebecca wasn't entirely convinced. Her experience of the world since Michael's death had taught her that most people offered sympathy, but little concrete help when tragedy struck. Yet here was evidence to the contrary, on a scale she could never have imagined. 2 weeks before the event, Diesel received a call from the Children's Hospital, where Lily was receiving treatment. The hospital administrator had heard about the fundraiser and wanted to offer the hospital's full support, including coordinating with Rebecca and Lily's medical teams to ensure they could attend the event if their health allowed. "We've never seen the motorcycle community mobilize quite like this," the administrator told Diesel. "It's extraordinary." "It's what we do," Diesel replied simply. "We take care of our own." "But that's just it," the administrator said. "You didn't know Rebecca and Lily before this. They weren't your own." Diesel thought about that for a moment. "They are now," he finally said. "That's how family works sometimes. You find each other when you need each other most." As the event drew closer, however, Rebecca's condition took a sudden turn for the worse. A routine scan revealed that the cancer had spread more aggressively than anticipated, requiring an immediate adjustment to her treatment plan. She spent 3 days in the hospital, fighting a high fever and battling the crushing fear that she wouldn't live to see Lily recover. Diesel visited daily, sometimes just sitting quietly by her bedside while she slept, other times engaging in conversation that carefully avoided the subject of her worsening condition. On the third day, as he was preparing to leave, Rebecca caught his hand. "If I don't make it," she began, her voice weak but determined. "You will," Diesel interrupted firmly. "If I don't," she insisted, "promise me you'll still be there for Lily, that the Steel Angels will still support her, even if I'm not around to see it." The request hit Diesel hard. He had grown genuinely fond of both Rebecca and Lily over the past weeks, and the thought of Rebecca not surviving was painful in a way he hadn't expected. "I promise," he said, his voice rougher than usual with emotion, "but you're going to be there, Rebecca. You're going to see this through. You're stronger than you know." She managed a small smile. "From what I've heard about your past, you're pretty good at beating the odds yourself." Diesel raised an eyebrow. "Been asking about me, have you?" "Just doing my due diligence," she replied, a flash of her former spirit showing through. "Can't have just any tattooed motorcycle man hanging around my daughter." The joke relieved some of the tension, and by the next day, Rebecca's fever had broken. She was released from the hospital with a modified treatment plan and strict instructions to rest. The fundraiser was now just 10 days away. The weekend of the fundraiser arrived with perfect late summer weather. Clear skies and temperatures mild enough that both Rebecca and Lily felt strong enough to attend, at least for a portion of the event. Diesel had arranged for a medical tent with volunteer nurses, including Jenny, to be available, complete with a quiet, air-conditioned space where mother and daughter could rest if needed. Nothing could have prepared Rebecca for what awaited them at the fairgrounds. As Diesel escorted their car through a special entrance, the sound hit them first, the thunderous rumble of hundreds of motorcycles. Then, as they rounded the corner, the sight took their breath away. Motorcycles of every make and model filled the massive parking area, their riders gathering in groups, many already wearing the "Bold is Beautiful" t-shirts. "How many people are here?" Rebecca asked in awe, her voice barely audible over the engines. "Last count was over 1,000 riders," Diesel replied, unable to keep the pride from his voice. "And that's just the bikers. There are probably another 2,000 local people here too. The whole town has shown up, Rebecca." Tears filled her eyes as the reality sank in. "All this out for us? All this for you," he confirmed. "And wait until you see inside." The fairgrounds had been transformed. Booths lined the pathways, selling everything from food to crafts, with proceeds going to the fundraiser. A stage had been set up where bands would perform throughout the day. A children's area featured games and activities, many specially designed to be accessible for kids with limited energy or mobility. Banners with Rebecca and Lily's photos hung prominently, alongside information about both breast cancer and childhood leukemia, raising awareness while raising funds. As Diesel helped Rebecca and Lily from the car, a hush fell over the nearest group of bikers. Then spontaneously they began to applaud. The applause spread through the crowd like a wave, growing louder as more people joined in. Rebecca froze, overwhelmed by the reception, but Lily, despite her frailty, straightened her shoulders and waved, a huge smile spreading across her face. "Mom, they're all here for us," she exclaimed, her excitement overcoming the fatigue that had plagued her for days. Rebecca could only nod, too choked with emotion to speak. Diesel placed a steadying hand on her shoulder, guiding her forward as the crowd parted to create a path for them. The day passed in a blur of introductions, well wishes and more generosity than Rebecca could comprehend. People she had never met approached with envelopes containing cash donations. Children brought Lily small gifts and cards. Local businesses presented checks. The Steel Angels had organized a silent auction with donated items ranging from handmade quilts to vacation packages, all generating additional funds. Grizzly's wife, Elaine, sought out Rebecca, sharing her own experience as a breast cancer survivor, with a warmth and understanding that broke through Rebecca's usual reserve. "The hair grows back," she assured Rebecca, running a hand through her own short silver curls. "And so does the strength. You'll see." By mid-afternoon, Rebecca was exhausted but determined to stay for the main event, a ceremony where Diesel would announce the total funds raised. Lily had retreated to the medical tent for a nap, monitored by Jenny, while Rebecca sat in a comfortable chair near the stage, watching as Diesel and the other Steel Angels officers prepared to address the crowd. Diesel approached the microphone, and the fairgrounds fell silent. Standing there in his full Steel Angels regalia, the leather vest adorned with patches telling the story of his journey, he cut an imposing figure. But when he spoke, his voice carried a gentleness that belied his appearance. "Most of you know me as Diesel," he began, "president of the Steel Angels MC. Some of you remember when that name meant trouble coming. Today it means something different. Today it means family." He gestured toward Rebecca. 2 months ago, I met Rebecca and Lily Thompson, a mother and daughter both fighting cancer at the same time, both bald from chemo, both braver than anyone I've ever known. Rebecca ducked her head, uncomfortable with the praise but deeply moved. When I first visited their home, I saw the medical bills piled up. I saw the worry in Rebecca's eyes, not for herself, but for her daughter. I saw a mother and child fighting the battle of their lives, and I knew the Steel Angels had to step up. He paused, looking out over the sea of faces. But what happened next surprised even me. 1 club became 5. 5 became 20. 20 became over 100, from 6 different states. One biker heard about Rebecca and Lily, and then 200 of us answered the call. The crowd erupted in cheers and the revving of motorcycle engines. Diesel waited for the noise to subside before continuing. "Today we show what the motorcycle community is really about. Today we remind the world that behind the leather and the tattoos are men and women who know what it means to fight, what it means to struggle, and what it means to stand together when one of us falls." He turned to directly address Rebecca. "Rebecca, you and Lily aren't fighting alone anymore. You have an army behind you now. And it's my honor to announce that this weekend this community has raised—" Diesel unfolded a piece of paper, handed to him by another club member, and his eyes widened slightly as he read the number. $340,000 to support you and Lily through your treatment and recovery." The crowd exploded in celebration. Rebecca sat frozen in shock, her hands covering her mouth as tears streamed down her face. The amount was more than enough to cover all the medical bills, keep their home and provide financial security throughout the long treatment road ahead. It was freedom. It was hope. It was a miracle born from the compassion of strangers who were strangers no more. Diesel stepped down from the stage and walked to Rebecca's side as the crowd continued to cheer. He crouched beside her chair, speaking quietly so only she could hear. "The Steel Angels protect their own. You and Lily are family now. Whatever happens, whatever you need, we'll be there. That's a promise." Rebecca could only nod through her tears, reaching out to grasp his hand in wordless gratitude. Later that evening, as the event continued with a benefit concert, Rebecca sat beside Lily's bed in the medical tent. Lily had woken from her nap with renewed energy, eager to hear about everything she had missed. "Mom, Aunt Jenny says they raised enough money to pay all the bills and keep our house and everything," Lily said, her eyes wide with wonder. "Is that true?" Rebecca nodded, still processing the day's events herself. "Yes, baby, it's true. We don't have to worry about the money anymore. We can just focus on getting better." Lily thought about this for a moment. "So all those bikers out there, they did this for us, but they don't even know us." "They know us now," Rebecca said softly, echoing Diesel's words from earlier. "And I think maybe they understand something important that I was forgetting." "What's that?" Rebecca brushed a gentle hand over her daughter's bald head, matching her own. "That sometimes the strongest people are the ones who know when to lean on others. And sometimes family isn't just the people you're born to. It's the people who choose you." Lily's face brightened with understanding. "Like Diesel and the Steel Angels?" "Exactly like them." The door to the medical tent opened and Diesel poked his head in. "Mind if I come in? There's someone here who wants to meet Lily." At Rebecca's nod, he entered, followed by a young woman in her 20s. She wore a Steel Angels t-shirt and a bright smile, and her head was completely bald. "This is Sarah," Diesel introduced. "She's my niece. She finished her last chemotherapy treatment for Hodgkin's lymphoma 3 months ago." Sarah approached Lily's bed and held out her fist for a bump. "Hey there, fellow warrior. I heard you've been kicking cancer's butt." Lily bumped her fist, grinning. "I'm trying. Did your hair fall out too?" "Sure did. It's starting to grow back a little now," Sarah said, running a hand over her head where the faintest shadow of regrowth was visible. "I kept shaving it, though. Figured I'd stay bald in solidarity until the event was over." "Bald is beautiful, right?" "Right," Lily agreed enthusiastically. As Lily and Sarah chatted, Diesel moved to stand beside Rebecca. Sarah wanted to come as soon as she heard about Lily. "She's been where Lily is. She knows how hard it can be, especially for a kid." "Thank you for bringing her," Rebecca said. "Look at Lily's face. I haven't seen her light up like that in weeks." They watched in comfortable silence as the 2 cancer warriors, one in battle, one emerging victorious, shared experiences and laughs. In that moment, Rebecca felt something she had almost forgotten: peace. The road ahead was still long and uncertain, but they weren't walking it alone anymore. They had found their tribe in the most unexpected place. 3 months later, Rebecca sat in Dr. Patel's office, her hands clasped tightly in her lap as she waited for the results of her latest scan. The aggressive new treatment protocol had been brutal, leaving her weaker than ever before, but she had persevered through it, clinging to the hope that it might show some effect on the cancer that had been spreading through her body. The door opened, and Dr. Patel entered, a file in her hands and an unreadable expression on her face. "Rebecca," she began, taking a seat across from her, "I've reviewed your scans." Rebecca held her breath, preparing for the worst. "And I have to say I'm quite surprised. The tumors have decreased in size by nearly 30%. The spread to your liver shows signs of regression. It's not a complete response, but it's significantly better than we expected at this stage." Rebecca stared at her, unable to process the words immediately. "Are you saying the treatment is working?" Dr. Patel smiled, the first genuinely hopeful expression Rebecca had seen on her face since the diagnosis. "Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. It's too early to talk about remission, but this is a very positive response. Something is definitely working." Tears filled Rebecca's eyes as the news sank in. She wasn't out of the woods, far from it, but for the first time, there was a glimmer of real hope that she might have more time than the doctors had initially predicted. More time with Lily, more time to see her daughter recover, more time to live. That evening, she shared the news with the small group gathered in her living room for their now regular Friday night dinner. Jenny, Diesel, Mercy, and Carlos, who had become a fixture in Lily's life, like the big brother she'd never had. "That's incredible news, Beck," Jenny exclaimed, pulling her sister into a careful hug, mindful of how fragile she still was despite the positive medical report. Diesel, more reserved as always, simply nodded, but the relief in his eyes spoke volumes. "Told you you were stronger than you knew," he said gruffly. As the others celebrated, Diesel stepped outside onto the porch for a moment of quiet. Rebecca followed him a few minutes later, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders against the autumn chill. "Penny for your thoughts?" she asked, joining him at the railing. Diesel glanced at her, a rare vulnerability visible in his expression. "Just thinking about Jimmy. Wondering if things might have been different for him with the kind of support you and Lily have had." Rebecca nodded, understanding. "I think about Michael that way sometimes. If the doctors had caught the aneurysm before it ruptured, if the ambulance had come faster." She shook her head. "It's a dangerous path to go down." "Yeah," Diesel agreed. "Better to focus on what's in front of us." He hesitated, then added, "I'm really glad about your news, Rebecca. Really glad." The simple statement carried the weight of months of shared struggle, of a friendship forged in the crucible of crisis. Rebecca had come to value Diesel's steady presence in their lives, his reliability, his quiet strength, his unwavering commitment to helping them through the darkest time of their lives. "The Steel Angels have lived up to their name," she said softly. "You've been angels for us, Diesel. I don't know how we can ever repay that." "You don't need to," he replied simply. "Just get better. That's all the repayment we need." Inside, they could hear Lily laughing at something Carlos had said, a sound that had become more frequent as her treatment progressed with promising results. Rebecca smiled at the sound, then turned back to Diesel. "When I'm stronger," she said, "I want to do something, give back somehow. I've been thinking, maybe I could help with the next fundraiser, for someone else who needs it." Diesel's face broke into a rare, full smile. "I think that could be arranged." 3 years later, the Bald is Beautiful ride had become an annual tradition, raising money for cancer patients facing financial hardship. The event had grown each year, spreading to other states, other clubs, creating a network of support for families battling not just the disease, but the devastating financial aftermath. Rebecca, now in remission, stood on the stage where once she had sat in shock at the generosity of strangers. Beside her stood Lily, 12 years old, her blonde hair grown back into a stylish bob, her leukemia in remission for 18 months. Both wore leather vests with special patches identifying them as honorary Steel Angels. 3 years ago, Rebecca addressed the crowd, her voice strong and clear, "I was a desperate mother with a sick child, facing the unimaginable burden of both of us fighting cancer at the same time. I was losing hope. I was losing my home. I was afraid I was losing my daughter." She reached out to pull Lily close to her side. Then one biker heard about our story. Diesel, Mitchell, and the Steel Angels stepped into our lives and changed everything, not just with the incredible financial support, though that literally saved our home and gave us the freedom to focus on healing, but with something even more precious: community, family. Rebecca gestured to where Diesel stood with the other Steel Angels, his proud smile visible even beneath his beard. These men and women, with their leather and tattoos and loud motorcycles, taught me and Lily the true meaning of strength. They showed us that real courage isn't about facing adversity alone. It's about accepting help when you need it most. It's about building bridges instead of walls. It's about recognizing that we are all connected, all responsible for each other. The crowd, thousands strong, listened in respectful silence. Today, Lily and I stand before you cancer-free, and we're dedicating our lives to continuing what the Steel Angels started. The Rebecca and Lily Thompson Foundation, funded by the ongoing generosity of events like this, has already helped 23 families facing the financial toxicity of cancer treatment. We've prevented foreclosures, kept utilities running, provided transportation to treatments, and most importantly, given hope. Lily stepped forward then, taking the microphone with the confidence of a child who had faced death and emerged stronger. "When I was sick, I thought the hardest part would be losing my hair or feeling yucky from chemo," she said. "But the hardest part was seeing my mom worry about money all the time. No kid with cancer should have to worry about that stuff, and no parent should either." The crowd erupted in applause. Lily waited for it to quiet before continuing. "The bikers who helped us became our family. Now we want to be that family for other kids and parents, because bald is still beautiful, and so is helping each other." As mother and daughter embraced on stage, Diesel felt a familiar tightening in his chest, the feeling that had first gripped him when Jenny had approached him 3 years earlier. That initial moment of compassion had grown into something far beyond anything he could have imagined, touching hundreds of lives and transforming his own in the process. The Steel Angels had always been his family. Now that family had expanded in beautiful, unexpected ways, and it had all started with one simple decision: to listen, to care, to act. "That's what it's all about," he murmured to himself as the crowd cheered. "Finding family wherever you can, and holding on tight once you do." Later that evening, as the event wound down, Rebecca found Diesel by his motorcycle, preparing to lead the final ride of the day, a sunset procession in memory of those lost to cancer and in honor of the survivors. "Got room for 2 more?" she asked, Lily at her side. Diesel raised an eyebrow. "You sure you're up for it?" Rebecca smiled. "Absolutely. Doctor says I'm fully cleared for normal activities. Had I promised Lily her first motorcycle ride when we were both better, remember?" "I remember." Diesel nodded, his expression softening as he looked at Lily, now healthy and vibrant, a stark contrast to the frail child he'd first met 3 years ago. "Got helmets for both of you in my saddlebag. Been carrying them around just in case." As they prepared for the ride, other Steel Angels gathered around, offering Lily tips for her first motorcycle experience, making sure her helmet fit properly, treating her like one of their own, which, in every way that mattered, she was. Rebecca watched the scene with a full heart, remembering the desperate, frightened woman she had been when this journey began. Cancer had taken much from her: her health temporarily, her security, her independence. But it had also, in its cruel way, given her something precious, a reminder of humanity's capacity for compassion and a family larger and more diverse than she could ever have imagined. As she climbed onto the motorcycle behind Diesel, with Lily secured in a sidecar decorated specially for the occasion, Rebecca felt a sense of completion. The circle that had begun with one biker hearing about their plight had expanded to include hundreds, then thousands of people, creating ripples of compassion that continued to spread outward, touching lives far beyond their small town. "Ready?" Diesel asked over his shoulder. "Ready," Rebecca confirmed, wrapping her arms around his waist as the engine roared to life. They pulled out onto the road, leading a procession of over 1,000 motorcycles into the setting sun, a thundering testament to the power of community, the strength of the human spirit, and the family that can be found in the most unexpected places. If this story of incredible community support touched your heart, please hit the subscribe button and notification bell now. Your subscription helps us share more stories of hope and compassion with the world. Remember that in our darkest moments, we often find our greatest light. And sometimes that light comes roaring in on two wheels, ready to change everything.